Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Blame It On Marketing. We have a really, really special guest with us today, and we're going to be talking about owning your niche in marketing. So, we have discussions about generalisms versus specialisms. Quite often, I think within teams and within individual conversations with marketers. So, we wanted to bring someone on who is a very, very, very specialized person and very good at what they do to see what their take is on that. And I will throw it over to Leah to introduce herself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name's Lea Turner and I am a LinkedIn trainer. I'm based in the UK. I've been using LinkedIn for about 4 years now, grown a following of 160,000 people, and worked with thousands and thousands of business owners and companies to provide training to help them to attract leads, build their brands, build their visibility on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Thanks, Leah. We feel very special to have you on. So there is always this debate, and lots of our audience are marketers, but there is always this debate about whether, as a marketer, you should niche down and specialize in something specific. So in your case, you've specialized in LinkedIn and that's your bag and that's what you do. And you've made a huge success and successful career out of that. And then there's also this argument about whether you should stay a generalist, because obviously if you stay a generalist, you can do a little bit of everything, and it means maybe in the job market it's potentially easier for you to find a new job if you need to, or switch around. So just wanted to start there. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm a little bit different because I wasn't a marketer before I became a LinkedIn specialist. So I had a small business that I ran and that I marketed basically just by word of mouth from my existing clients. It wasn't until I got onto LinkedIn and started using it that it became apparent more to other people than to me that I was very good at marketing. And I learned to market my existing business that I had as a transcriber on LinkedIn very, very quickly, attracted a lot of followers, a lot of clients. I think it was like 100 in my first 3 or 4 months on the platform. And that was what led me to go, oh, actually, I'm quite good at this marketing thing. And other people were going, no, you're really good at this. Like, you should be showing other people. And people kept asking me. So my niche was kind of accidental. Um, I think if you're self-employed, niching is absolutely crucial. You don't have to niche as hard as a lot of people say. You can be good at a specific area, and you don't have to just do Google ads. You don't have to just do Instagram. There are different aspects of it, and you can do a few different things. But specializing in, say, one industry, or you're particularly good at copywriting, you're not trying to do. I think that's important, especially if you're running your own business, because it makes it so much easier to find clients that need that specific thing, and you can create content that talks about that specific thing, and it's so much easier with targeting. But I think if it in terms of a job, I mean, I've never attempted to get a marketing job, so I'm kind of just going on gut instinct. But I think there is an expectation within companies that when you go for a job, when it's in marketing, that you're going to be able to have a passing knowledge for everything. And even if you cannot do it all yourself, you know it enough that you could oversee other people doing that thing. If you have to bring in external consultants, you know what they're doing and that they're not pretending that they know what they're doing. You don't want to be seeing money go down the drain. So I think if it's in terms of employment, a certain level of ability in most areas of marketing, a working understanding is really important. But yeah, if you're planning to go out on your own, I think having a particular specialism, certainly to begin with, makes it so much easier to actually get clients.
I think you make some really great points. Whilst I consider myself a marketing generalist, but now that you're saying, like, if you're working for yourself, you still have some sort of a niche typically. And I'm like, oh yeah, my niche is definitely B2B SaaS businesses, like in early funding stages. Like, that's who I work with. So maybe even as a generalist marketer, I still have a specific niche that I like working with. So that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, I didn't specialize in anything because I get bored. So I think it's also a bit of a personality maybe
I
thing.
think that's really crucial as well, especially if you're going to be self-employed. You have to get up and motivate yourself every day. And if you're trying to do parts of marketing that you just hate, it's very hard to stay motivated in your own job. And when it's all on you, your wages aren't paid at the end of the month unless you actually do the work. Then it's about keeping that fire up your ass, that you need to stay motivated and excited by what you're doing. And if you're constantly having to get up and do things that you roll your eyes at and dread, it's going to become very hard to keep interested and excited by what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably why so many people do end up going out on their own, because when you're in house and you're kind of expected to do everything, there does come a tipping point where you go, I either can't take on any more information, or I'm in back to back calls all the time and I'm not actually getting to do the job that I want to do. It's not what I'm here being paid for. And you go out on your own and you get that opportunity to either specialize or, you know, like as Ruta said, specialize and generalize at the same time, which I think is a really good way of looking at it. I'm interested, Leah, because you said you were sort of saying, you know, you didn't sort of necessarily see yourself as a marketer to begin with, and then you kind of, you know, lots of people are like, actually, you're really fucking good at this. Was there anything in particular that kind of happened at that time for you that sort of like helped you do that? Because obviously that takes a huge amount of confidence to just be like, do you know what? I am really good. I'm going to do it.
Um, it was probably more out of necessity than design. My initial business that I was running, that I was getting clients for on LinkedIn, I had grown it because of LinkedIn. I had 5 people working for me as freelancers, because my business had gone from just me to I cannot do all of this work, and I'd recruited 5 different transcribers to work alongside me. And when COVID hit, I didn't have any work for them, because I only just had enough to keep me going, just about. And I also had my son at home from school, and I couldn't do long hours of transcribing. And I had so many people saying to me, how are you doing this? How are you getting all these clients? How do you know how to write content like that? And so it was because they were asking me that I thought, well, I might have only been doing this for 6 months, but clearly I'm a few steps ahead of people. So if I've got knowledge that they want, there's no reason that I can't sell it. And I did feel that kind of like, oh God, my audacity! How dare I? I've only been doing this for 6 months. But it didn't matter if I've only done it for 6 months, but I'm getting results better than people who've been doing it for 6 years. Clearly, I've got something that they need, and so I had to earn some more money. I had a child at home. I had rent to pay, and there was no way of getting out of it. My clients, my first business, they weren't generating any work because they couldn't see their clients. So I took a punt, and I started charging £99 for an hour of chatting with people. And that was what I used to earn in an entire day of typing. So I was like, bloody hell, this is like winning the lottery. This is great. Um, and people came back and they said, you're amazing. Like, I can't believe how much you taught me. You're not charging enough. Look at all these results I'm getting. Um, and I just became like fully booked. And I've, pretty much been fully booked for the last 4 years. It's been 3.5 years since I was LinkedIn training, 4 years since I started posting regularly on LinkedIn. Um, and yeah, it was the push of COVID that, and suddenly so many people wanted to generate leads online because they couldn't go to in-person networking events. They couldn't network like they used to. So they turned to LinkedIn, and I very much rode that wave. People needed what I was doing, and they liked my um that I don't seem like what they imagine people on LinkedIn to be, because it had this very stuffy corporate reputation that made a lot of people feel like they didn't belong there or uncomfortable being themselves there. And I was like the opposite. And that made them pay attention and go, actually, if she can do it, and she looks like that and speaks like that and creates content like that, that doesn't, it's not what we expect on LinkedIn. She's having success like that. Why can't I? And so that was kind of my USP in terms of attracting clients that wanted a new way of doing it that suited them, not the way they thought LinkedIn was supposed to be.
I'm really glad you kind of brought up the whole thing of like you've been doing it for 6 months, but having more success than people that have been doing it for years. Because in our pre-call, we kind of spoke a little bit about the fact that there's so many like LinkedIn trainers for LinkedIn, but also there's so many people that have done something and then are kind of turning it into training now. I feel like it's like the like freelancer pipeline basically. And one thing that we wanted to ask you is, how can you figure out who's actually doing well and who actually knows what they're talking about, if you are looking for something like that?
Um, it's hard because there are a lot of people who will appear popular, appear successful, appear to know what they're talking about. I think one of the key things that you can keep an eye on is their results. Do they have testimonials that back up what they say from legitimate clients? Can you reach out to those clients and have a conversation? So if you ask a professional if you can have a conversation with any of their previous clients and they say, oh no, they're all confidential, no, I can't do that, or they avoid the question, I'd be worried. Also, check that they're posting about their results. People who are very successful at what they do and are marketing their business will show you the data, will show you the proof of the results. And that's not something I shy away from. I will share it frequently. And I will be constantly posted about by my clients that say how much help they've had. And I encourage my clients to do the same, because people will trust you when they can see that you've got those results. Listen to them speak. So I notice, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I notice that there are people that will talk a good game on LinkedIn, but you listen to a podcast and they're just regurgitating things that have been quoted by Gary Vee. They're speaking in cliches. They're speaking in things that they've read from Seth Godin. There's no original thoughts whatsoever. And if they're not coming up with new ideas, if they're not innovating, if they're not leading the way in some way and sharing their own real thoughts and ideas, can you trust them? And that's definitely, like, go and listen to people speak on podcasts. I built a lot of my reputation initially by going on Clubhouse when it was a big thing. And I would go into Clubhouse and I would speak in rooms, and I'd be pulled up on stage to speak in rooms. And people would ask me questions and they would fire me all sorts of questions and I could answer them. And I was amongst lots of other LinkedIn experts that were doing it, but I knew my answers were better and I was being I had more knowledge than they did, which gave me a lot of confidence, but also ensured that I built that authority and credibility. So if they can't speak to their subjects without a script written by ChatGPT, or scrolling Twitter to harvest other people's ideas, they're probably not the right expert for you. They're maybe not even an expert at all.
Yeah, the people who post screenshots of their tweets that are basically just kind of like regurgitating crap that someone else has said but doesn't really mean anything, they're the ones that always like interest me. I'm like, how have you got so many followers just from posting, like, crap that people just say in their day-to-day lives? It just
Marketing
doesn't.
is psychology.
Yeah, that.
Yes.
Like, what? How is that helpful? How does that help anyone? One of the things you did
I
talk
mean,
about,
I'm
Leah,
not really a
was
fan.
yeah, yeah. We're not either. We very much firmly are on the fence of, like, you need to do the job to, like, talk about the job, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, you're just talking crap. One of the things you did
Yeah.
say about sort of like you being on LinkedIn is about how you kind of like represent you are just yourself on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has very much in the past been a place for, I would call them, men in blue
Corporate
suits and brown
columns.
shoes. Yeah.
Pale,
Um,
pale, and stale.
yes, very much so. So what's it been like for you, kind of like being open on LinkedIn and sharing like lots about your personal journey and your life? And do you get backlash on LinkedIn about doing that?
I used to. I don't now, because now I've got the sort of influence to bitch slap them publicly, and they will be. So I don't. um, no, I mean, so when I first started, I didn't even have a profile photo. I had a business logo, because I was like, oh, I'm going to be run out of the corporate village with pitchforks and flaming torches if I dare show my face. But then I realized that actually, standing out was a great marketing tool. And there was a lot of people that wanted to be on LinkedIn that did look like me, that did think differently, that didn't feel like they fit the mold, that would become my clients. And strangely enough, that then led to a huge number of corporate clients. I've worked with enormous corporate companies lawyers, recruiters, financial people, they're like my bread and butter. They're the people I work with the most. And the reason is they want to be able to build trust and bring themselves into their content. So there's definitely been times where it's felt uncomfortable, but I'm not really one to stay in my comfort zone too often. I live on the edge of my comfort zone pretty much all the time. Um, it's had its moments. It's had its, and I've have had abusive messages. I've had inappropriate messages. I've had all sorts of people that have, you know, men particularly of a certain age and demographic, like to message me to tell me how I could do something better or do something different or do something that would suit them more. And I just turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, have you actually paid me any money? Are you my ideal client? And they go, no. Well, are you ever going to be my client? No. I'm like, so my content's not for you, is it? Like, sorry, Jeffrey, but it's not for you. So, yeah, there's always going to be pushback when you put your head above the parapet and you do something a little bit differently, especially when you look differently and you're a woman. You're going to get pushed back, but I can push back harder. So
this is if memory serves me right, but I think one of the first posts of yours I saw was actually you basically showing some of the messages that men, have sent you that are very inappropriate. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, under what? In what world was somebody with a full LinkedIn profile where you can see where they work, what they do, like their entire career and like, personal details, would you then use LinkedIn to message someone else with stuff like
because
that? It
because
blew
they're
my
so
mind.
arrogant. They're so arrogant that they don't think that a woman is going to stand up to them, but they haven't met me. And when I post about, people think that when I post about it, it's for attention. And granted, it gets a lot of attention, and I don't really do that very often anymore. But I put it in my newsletter now instead. But when I post about it, I get an influx of messages from women that say, thank you so much for standing up for yourself, because that
Mm.
made me feel confident enough to respond to this message that I got, or to stand up to somebody at work that's been treating me inappropriately. So when I stand up for them, I'm demonstrating that you don't have to accept it, and that you can politely but firmly come back against it. Not always politely, but mostly I will just be quite firm with them and just say, actually, your comments make me really uncomfortable and they're completely inappropriate, and they don't know what to do with that. And for so many of them that think it's okay to send those messages, the reason they still think it's okay is because no one's ever turned around and said to them, that's not okay. And that makes me feel this
Mm-hmm.
way. And so when you do, a lot of them come back and say sorry, because they don't realize what they're doing is totally over the line. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse. We should all know how to be decent to one another, and that LinkedIn or anywhere on the internet is not an appropriate place to make sexual advances on strangers unless you're on a dating app. But I want to stand up for myself, to show other people that it's okay to do that. Whether you're a woman standing up to a man being inappropriate, or somebody standing up to someone at work that's making you uncomfortable, like, no one's going to come in and stand up for you a lot of the time. And so we have to kind of
Mm.
take that responsibility. And I'll stand up for other people when I can, but I don't always know about it. So yeah, I hope that's the sort of motive behind it. But yes, it garners a lot of
Mm.
attention, but what are you going to do? Like, it's a side effect
It
that
should,
Yeah.
right? It
given me a
should,
hell of a
because
reputation.
it's outrageous, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't put them on LinkedIn very often anymore, because I don't want to lose my account, and I don't really want to sort of that to be the main part of my brand. So I have a section in my newsletter called Cringe Box, and I put them in there.
Oh, I love that.
So once a
Love
week
that.
they go out.
Go
Yeah.
subscribe to Leah's newsletter if you want some juicy screenshots.
It's quite difficult to be completely fearless as a woman online, because, and especially I think there's probably a big generational thing involved in that as well for us. Um, is that, you do get messages like that. You are used to, potentially, if you've ever worked in an office, people not taking you seriously when you've made comments back about people being inappropriate. So what is your advice to women when that happens online? Like, how do you handle it? Obviously it's easy for people like us to be fearless and push back and all that stuff, but if you're not in that situation, what do you think people should do?
I handle it depending on my mood. So if I'm not feeling particularly strong or combative, I will just block them, report the message, block them, and delete it away from my vision. I don't want to see it. If I am feeling sassy, I'm a comeback queen. If I don't see it, my VA's an absolute comeback king. Like, he's even better than I am. I think you need to understand where you are and how you're feeling. You don't have you have no responsibility to stand up for yourself or to stand up for others if you're not feeling okay to do that. But I try to think about what I would want to see my daughter do. Now, I don't have a daughter, but if I had a daughter, how would I want to demonstrate for her to deal with it? And I try to act like that, because I think sometimes it might feel uncomfortable for me, but I need to be the strong person that I want my children and my peers to see me to be. So you don't have to feel that responsibility. If you're not comfortable combating it, coming back against it, and you just want to block, report, remove, fine, but don't accept it. And don't take it personally either, because it's never personal. It's a them problem. It's not a you problem. You haven't done anything wrong. Just because you posted a picture which has got a glimpse of cleavage does not warrant inappropriate messages from men coming into your inbox. Like, we have cleavage. It happens. We don't get to be treated like sluts for it. Like, not that there's anything wrong with being promiscuous either. I have nothing against that. But I'm just saying, like, men do not get to treat us as if we're just there to look at, or decorations or sexual objects, just because we've posted a picture online that they think is attractive. Because that's generally not why most of us post photos online. We're building familiarity and personability with our brand. We're not going, hey, look at my tits. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that are doing that, but
I can think of a few profiles that are very like selfie based on LinkedIn, and I'm like, you're very cute. Is this
but
what you're
the thing is,
using?
and
Which is
this is
fine, and do
what
that.
I've learned in the sort of selfie game, which I did lean on more previously, but I don't do it now. It just attracts the wrong people, because actually my market is not horny old men with erectile dysfunction. It's like serious business people who want to take me seriously and see my capabilities, not, so while I might be able to garner more likes on a post if I include a selfie, if those likes are all coming from people that I don't want following me, that I don't want engaging with me, then I'm going after the wrong clients, the wrong people.
In
So
a
I
weird
don't rely
way,
on that these
that's
days.
also really great marketing advice and really great career advice. You gotta you gotta put out the stuff that is appropriate to what you're doing. And you know what? Like you said, it's a them problem, not a you problem. So if someone doesn't get you, there's only so much you can do, like actually in your job, if we're not talking about, you know, other weird things
Yeah,
happening online.
I could
I feel like
post
it applies to
high-end
both things.
selfies in business attire, looking all glammed up every day of the week if I could afford the photo shoots. Well, I could afford them, but I don't want to do them. But I don't. That's not, like, my vibe is not that. That's not the kind of person I am. I'm much more like post silly videos of people saying knobs rather than like glamorous
That
photos.
was good, by the way. I
Thanks.
watched that knob
Took me
video
ages.
twice.
I had to watch it so many times to get the captions in the right place, and I was like, for God's sakes, I'm never gonna. Yeah, it's different.
So, of course, you work for yourself, right? So you can risk being yourself in a way online. There's, the only person that I guess suffers if something goes bad is you, which is bad, but it's you. What we find a lot with the more corporate, not even more corporate clients, just businesses in general, is that they can be quite mortified of their staff or their employees going online and being themselves and posting. So is there anything you would suggest either for, I guess, leaders to do to help them do it well, or for people that do want to build a LinkedIn following and maybe work somewhere to make sure that, it's still kosher and it's still okay, but they can be themselves and they can represent themselves authentically?
A lot of businesses that ask me this exact question, they want to train their staff, but they're not sure their staff are actually going to do the thing because they're nervous that they're going to get in trouble for doing the thing. And the best thing that they can do is have very, very, very transparent and comprehensive social media guidelines that are always evolving. So they need to have a set of guidelines of what is and isn't okay. Like, you can be yourself, but we don't mind if you post photos of you having a glass of champagne with the team at an awards ceremony, but if it's photos of you getting wrecked down the pub on a Friday night with your mates, that's not going to fly. So they need to have those boundaries so that staff can read them and go, okay, I've got something to refer to so I don't cross the line. If they don't want us to talk about our political opinions or our or get into like arguments with people, if there's conflict, we just leave it, we don't get involved because the company name's attached. And having a single point of contact that people can reach out to if they're not sure. So if there's any ambiguity, if they're worried about anything and they've got an idea for a post and they're not sure, it needs to go to a single point of contact who can respond reasonably fast and say yes or no. And then that would then be added to the guidelines for future use. So it needs to be that ever evolving thing. But I think businesses need to understand the power of letting their staff do it. A lot of them are like, oh, we don't want our staff building brands online because then when they leave, they're going to take all of our contacts with them. It's like, but isn't your job creating an environment where they don't want to leave? Isn't that the point? And actually, if they do want to leave, wouldn't you rather they can find another job quickly and efficiently, or reach out to their network to replace themselves in their job? There's so many opportunities when you've got like what I call an insurance policy for your career and your future, whether they want to go self-employed or they want to change careers. But for the company, it's the same thing. You can still attract, you might lose talent because they're given other opportunities from visibility, but you'll also attract talent because people will understand what a great place to work you've got. So people focus very much on the what ifs in a negative sense, but it's the possibilities that it creates as well. And those are really powerful. And allowing your staff to be the individual selves will attract different types of people to the business as staff or as clients. You know, you've got a 25-year-old guy who's grown up in, you know, the a not so nice part of London, who's got himself into a really great career opportunity and he's got a great story to tell and really diverse opinions that you're not going to get from Barry, who's 45, who grew up in Kent. But Barry's going to attract a very different clientele. Yeah, and if you want a diverse clientele or you want to reach different parts of the community, you need to represent those different parts of the community, and LinkedIn is an amazing way to do that.
One thing that Emma and I have noticed from our previous workplace where we were working together is that a lot of the time, the people who want to maybe use your product or buy your product, they're looking for inspiration and they're looking for aspirational things to work towards. So actually, being exactly who they are is not going to attract the clients that you wish you had, because those people want to be someone else or want to be doing something else. So if you can provide them a path to being that person, you often can get that client, even if they're, you know, they don't look exactly like what you thought they might look like, if that makes any sense.
You don't always have to be the person people want to work with, but giving them an idea of what the company's like, the ethics, the values, what it stands for. It just because you don't like me doesn't mean my company's not the right fit for you, or just because you can't relate to me doesn't mean my company's not the right fit for you. But I think it just widens the reach of companies, and it's an amazing place for companies to show behind the scenes of what the company's like, what the culture's like, the things that they do beyond just what service they sell to their customers. What charities do they invest? Do they sponsor? What are they super passionate about? What is the relationships that they have with their customers like? What goes on behind the scenes of the business? What's the integration between the staff like? How do they appreciate their staff? All of those things, people care much more about those things now. We have so many options when it comes to where we buy what we buy, and on LinkedIn especially. Like if you want to coach, my God, how many different coaches have you got? If you want to buy a particular, like you want insurance, you want a mortgage, there are so many different options for all of us. But the ones that we will spend our money with are the ones that we see, the ones that we trust, the ones that we like, feel a connection with. And companies are missing a trick when they're not using LinkedIn to do that, because there's only so many people we can meet in person on a monthly basis, but on LinkedIn you can get seen by millions.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. Like we've spoken to very successful salespeople who've basically become kind of like sales influencers by nature of posting and being like themselves online, and they have generated so much money for the companies that they work for because they are using all of their tools. You know, lots of the guys who do this stuff are like, you know, they're like really into comedy, so they make loads of comedy that like resonates with people, and then by nature of that, they sell more and they reach different audiences. We also say that is like people are out there looking for social proof that your company is as good as you say it is, because like you say, Leah, people can buy from anywhere, from anyone, because we've got loads of options now. And isn't it nice to go on LinkedIn, do a stalk of the person who might be your account manager or your customer success manager and go, oh, this person actually knows what they're talking about. Like, I
Yeah,
want to
and
know
also
that.
when you
I'm
go,
sure other
well, I
people do
quite
these
like this
days.
person. So there's a guy,
Mm.
there's a couple of guys that are really good. So Rob Mayhew and Tom Boston both make hilarious videos based around sales, and they're very successful on LinkedIn. You've got there's a guy called Lawrence who's an accountant, and he's a very high level accountant with a very, very well known accountancy firm, and I won't say the name just in case I'm not supposed to, but he's known as the singing accountant, and he posts these emoji filled stories about saving dolphins, and he posts videos of himself singing, and he works very, very high up, and he works with celebrity clients, and like he's really well respected in his industry, and he's become a kind of influencer because he is very much his weird and wonderful self. And you know what, his corporate clients love it, and his corporate business, they attract so much business to the company as a result of it. Now, that's not what you would expect in a as from an accountant who works so senior and across the world. You don't expect that, but it works because the right people find him, and he goes to the end of the earth for his clients. He's fantastic at what he does, and just a lovely, lovely, lovely person. And it comes through in his content, and you get his family values, you get that he's got great morals. And even if you're a bit like, well, he's a bit wacky because of the sort of singing and dolphin saving thing and all the emojis, but you can't help but like him because you can connect with his values and his integrity. And that bypasses so much. You can be the weirdest person in the world, but if people see you've got strong values and respect you for it, they'll still want to work with you.
This is the perfect place for you to tell us a little bit about how, if somebody is interested in working with you, how they might go about doing that.
So there's a few different ways. If people are thinking about working with me, the best place to start is by checking out I'm Telling the Truth on my LinkedIn profile. I've got plenty of recommendations and social proof that you can trawl through if you're not sure. My website, Lea Turner, Lea, Lea Turner.co.uk. There's a digital course. So I've just launched a brand new digital course, which is really affordable for small businesses and takes them through everything in really short, I'm told very ADHD friendly, because I have ADHD. So I've made short videos that you can implement in your tea break that guide you through everything with tons of bonus resources. So that's kind of like the entry level. And there's also a membership community that I host with 330 solopreneurs and business owners that support one another, get masterclasses and LinkedIn clinics and content ideas every month, which is mad busy, such an active community. And then I also offer one-to-one training, corporate training, public speaking, and that's all detailed on my website, as well as loads of free resources on my shop as well that you can download, which are helpful if you're at the beginning of your LinkedIn training.
One thing we do like to end things on, Leah, is there anything we should have asked you that we didn't?
No, I don't think so. We've covered a fair variety, haven't we? No, I think yeah, usually the one people ask me is when the hell do you sleep? Because I just seem to be so busy all the time. But the answer is I don't. Well, actually, no, I do. I'm usually in bed by 10 o'clock with an episode of Criminal Minds or Maths at the moment, obviously, because I'm a, oh. I'm not really into reality TV shows, but Maths I'm a sucker for. So yeah, not.
So, thank you so much for joining us, Leah. We're going to link to all of your resources and your website and everything so people can check all of those out. And if you want to join us in our community, it's blameitonmarketing.com. So, if you want to have a whinge about your boss or you want to ask any of our kind of like expert speakers anything, that is the place to do it. But we will see you again next time. Thanks so much, Lea.